Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Weidman. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 133. Dennis Crowder here with Kasper Ozilowski on Wednesday, the 19th of July. Great to be here, Cass. A big episode of Submission Radio and some fun announcements today on the show as well.
That's right. We got some fun, sexy announcements, a fun, sexy lineup, and it's just a good vibe today, man. The birds are chirping. It's raining here in Melbourne, Australia, but there's a little bit of sun peeking out through the clouds. I'm feeling good, man, and we got a really fun lineup for you guys this week, don't we, Dennis? We've got Greg Rosa. A lot of people are thinking of who's Greg Rosa. He's actually one of Mayweather's security guards, one of the infamous ones that you would have seen a lot of during the press conferences during this McGregor World Tour. We've got Greg on the program. He's actually going to be our first guest this week, talking about a whole bunch of things behind the scenes. We have a lot of things to ask him, and we can't wait. We've got Colby Covington, a brand new addition to Submission Radio. Never spoken to Colby before. Actually, we spoke to him briefly at UFC 202 after his win, but never had him on the program. And the man has been spitting fire, so we figured, hey, if you're going to spit some fire, why not spit some fire on Submission Radio? So there's a lot to talk to him about. And then Luke Rockhold, a man who we're just dying to see back in the octagon. We haven't heard from him a little while, so we're hoping there's some cheeky updates that Luke Rockhold can give us. What's going on? When is he going to be fighting next? We've got him on the program. And that's not all. We've got another guest, don't we, Dennis?
That's right, a friend of the program, someone we love having on. Sheehan's going to come on the show, talk to us a little bit about the crazy world of MMA. We haven't still given our thoughts on the rest of the McGregor Mayweather World Tour, so we'll go through that. We'll give our thoughts on that. We'll talk about UFC Scotland, and we'll also preview this Chris Weidman, Kelvin Gastelume fight as well. So a lot of stuff to talk about, really, really exciting. But before we get to all that, a few reminders that we need to make and a few announcements as well. This will be our last episode for a couple of weeks. Me and Kasper are off to UFC 214 next week. So we'll actually be on the plane at this time, getting ready to deliver some excellent quality content for all you people at home. So make sure to jump on the YouTube channel and subscribe, because you will miss out on a lot of the content that comes out. A lot of it comes out exclusively on the YouTube channel. There's someone that's actually helped us get up there that we'll mention in just a second, but our next episode will be August 9th. But that doesn't mean that you guys won't get the awesome Submission Radio breakdowns that we love to do for you guys. The YouTube channel's going to have a lot of that. We'll be going through that, talking about UFC 214. It'll be breakdowns after the press conferences, breakdowns after the fights, interviews, exclusives. So make sure to jump on that YouTube channel. You won't be missing out on the Submission Ready content over those 2 weeks, but we will be back with a proper show then. But Cass, before we announce who is helping us get over to UFC 214 and who we want to thank, there's a big announcement here on the program that we've been teasing for quite some time. We can finally reveal what it is. Would you like to take the reins and let the people know what is happening?
Yeah, why not, man? I mean, I feel like this has been teased for far too long. We were originally supposed to tell you guys weeks ago, if not months ago, but basically, Submission Radio will now be becoming an official part of Podcast One Australia. You guys all know Podcast One in America. You've got shows like, say, Chael Sonnen's show. You've got Chris Jericho's show. Pretty much every celebrity with a podcast is on Podcast One in America. Oz Stereo, who is a huge company, owns TV stations, owns radio stations like the Hit Network, which is like Fox FM and Triple M, and all those kind of radio stations, national TV stations, national radio stations. They are bringing in Podcast One Australia, and we are on the initial list. So when it basically rolls out, which I believe it has rolled out now, we'll be on there. So you'll be seeing Submission Radio there. I don't think the migration process has happened just yet. For you Submission Radio listeners wondering what exactly this means as far as Submission Radio consumption, nothing's going to change. So if you listen on iTunes, you can keep listening on iTunes. If you subscribe anywhere else, that will all continue the same. All the migration and things like that will happen behind the scenes. But it's a big deal for us, isn't it, Dennis? I mean, at the end of the day, they came to us, not the other way around. And so it's very validating to see that, you know, big companies like that are interested in working with Submission Radio, and it just opens the doors for a lot of things in the future, things like official sponsors, things like recognition, crossovers. You might be seeing us in places like Triple M, but it really is a big deal to sort of start from absolutely nothing a few years ago, and to have a company like this, Podcast One Australia, roll out and have us on the initial lineup, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The Oz Stereo is in the submission radio business, and we're really happy to be a part of it. I mean, they've been really, really great to us, and you guys will be able to check us out on podcastone.com.au or the Podcast One app if you are in Australia. But again, if you're in America, stay glued to the same consumption that you still have there, because we're not on the American app, just so you guys know. But Cass, it's a huge deal, and we're really, really proud to be working with these guys. And there might be, who knows, some crossover with some of the programs and some of the stars on the network as well in the near future. But before we get into the episode, I mentioned it at the start of the intro. There is somebody who is helping Submission Radio get up to UFC 214 and bring the content for you guys over the next week when we get over there, and bring you all the interviews, all the exclusive chats, the breakdowns, and all of that. And that is a very, very special company that holds a special place in our heart. I am talking about Mousasi, who do an amazing job here in Australia creating proteins and a bunch of other great products here. The Mousasi Submission Radio relationship actually started a while back. When I was training, going to the gym, doing all that, Mousasi was actually the brand that I used. I really, really enjoyed it. You could pick it up at the supermarket, Woolworths, Coles. It's already pre-mixed for you. Always had good results using it, and the taste was always fantastic. We were able to get on the same page together, and these guys are the first ever event sponsor for Submission Radio. So they are actually getting us over there. They're going to be helping us bring you guys the content, and they've just been absolutely fantastic. What I like about these guys, apart from the fact that their products are really, really good, and you can pick them up even if you're not into the fitness thing and you don't know how to mix up your own protein. You just jump to the supermarket, grab the pre-mixed ones. They're delicious. They're great for you. But the other thing I love about them is they're actually investing in the MMA world. They're supporting Tyson Pedro. They're sponsoring him. I think they're doing some sponsorship here locally with the UFC, and they wanted to get involved in Submission Radio, and they want to see us do well. They want to support us. They want to be a part of the journey. So we're really, really thankful to them, and just super excited, Cass, to be working with them on this UFC 214 trip.
Oh, absolutely. And you see Mousasi commercials on, like, every time you watch a fight night here on Fox Sports, you got pretty much Mousasi during every commercial. So the fact that we're working together means a lot. And like you mentioned, they're the ones helping us get to UFC 214. So drinks are a Mousasi, but you'll be hearing a lot about the great things about Mousasi when we're up there in UFC 214. But without further ado, enough housekeeping, enough thanks, even though we are very thankful. It's time to get the show on the road. And I believe our first guest is on the line, Dennis, and you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys, this is a special treat. You may know our next guest from being Floyd Mayweather's security through the World Tour that took over the world last week. Greg La Rosa, welcome to Submission Radio. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. No problem.
No, we really appreciate your time. We know you're always busy, and you're obviously on call all the time. Tell us, where are you right now, Greg?
I'm out in Las Vegas right now. I'm just on my I'm on my ranch. I just finished feeding my horses. Just woke up not too long ago from late night training at the gym and hanging out now.
Oh, wow. So I guess that's something that fans didn't really know about you, that you've got a ranch and horses. I mean, I think I saw in an interview you said you live right near Floyd, so that you're on call anytime. You can go up there anytime. So is the ranch located near him, or is this another property that you've got that you go visit?
No, it's pretty close. I'm about 5 minutes from his house. I'm just on the outskirts of Vegas. So basically my backyard is like it's just like open desert and mountains and all that kind of stuff. I'm not near anyone. It's kind of my little escape from all the busy lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? So this is my life here at home.
Very nice. And just curious, how many horses do you have, and why horses? I feel like it's you got to be a particular person to have horses, right?
Yeah. I have 3 horses right now. I'm looking to get another one. I got 4 dogs. I love animals. I've always loved animals. My dad had horses, like race horses, growing up, and I've always started loving them at that point. And then my girl's always been into horses. So 2 of the horses are actually hers from when they were young. She's had them since they were a year old, and those horses are now 24 and 20. I just got one for myself that's she's 1,800 pounds, so she can hold my body. So I love horses, man. I love their spirit. I love being around them. It makes me feel calm, and I just like the atmosphere of the whole idea of it, basically.
Yeah, sure. And I feel like horses should have been a big part of this world tour. I feel like someone should have come in on a horse. It would have been a big part of it. You being fluent with horses, I feel like you would have been able to do your job off the back of the horse. So let's talk about that, because a lot of fans in the MMA world, Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, a lot of fans in the MMA world, they had their first introduction to you last week during the World Tour with Conor and Floyd. But I want to find out from you, Greg. Tell us, how was the experience for you? Because it's something that the combat world sees very rarely happen.
Right. It's unbelievable, man. I mean, first of all, this is the biggest fight ever, and I think it'll be the biggest fight that'll ever happen in the future and everything. And I'm me being a part of it, you know, I feel extremely blessed, and I don't know how many people can tell their friends and their family that they were on a stage with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, and I don't know how many people can tell their friends that, you know, they got into a verbal altercation with Conor. So, I mean, it's a great experience. I had a lot of fun. You know, I can't replace this experience with anything. Absolutely.
We'll definitely get to that and what exactly happened between you and Conor, but I want to ask you, because obviously the debate is who won the overall battle, you know, before the war goes down on August 26th. We know you work for Floyd, but did you feel that Conor got to him in any of the stops?
No, absolutely not. Not in a single bit. Floyd's been here for 21 years. He's fought world champions. He's been on a world stage for so many years. This is not new to him. Conor's an excellent athlete. He's a even better promoter. I take my hat off to him. He's done things in 4 years that people didn't even think were possible. So I got nothing negative to say in that aspect. But in terms of getting in Floyd's head, impossible. I believe the turning point of what showed that he couldn't get in his head is at the point where he touched his head in London there. To me, that showed a sign of weakness in Conor, because basically the touch, you're not supposed to be touching the other guy, obviously. And I believe that touch was to try to bring something out of Floyd. And he was basically saying, to me anyways, that I can't do it with words, I can't do it with actions, I need to try to do something else here. And even the touch didn't, you know, Floyd wasn't even paying attention. He was on his phone, and, you know, he was just laughing at it, like just laughing. He was talking to other people while Conor was doing his bid. And I think that was really getting to Conor.
What did you think when that touch happened? Because you were situated in an interesting position. You were kind of like on the side of the boxing ring, but obviously you were on duty and you were ready to go. When you saw Conor go for that touch, was a part of you ready to jump in there in case anything broke out?
No, I wasn't worried one bit. First of all, Floyd can handle himself. Second of all, I know they're both professionals. You know, Conor's a professional. He might walk the line, but he doesn't cross it, and I respect him for that. Floyd the same, obviously. It's part of the promotion, and they're both professional in that sense. And I wasn't worried one bit.
And one of the big things about this tour was just how many stops there were. I mean, you had obviously LA, then you had Toronto, then you had Brooklyn, and then you had to go to the other side of the world, all the way to London. I mean, it would have been really, really grueling for both guys. We noticed, I mean, we spoke about it recently, and how Conor looked like he was kind of wearing it. What was Floyd like behind the scenes, though? And did you notice him being affected at any point? Because we know he was smart. He wore the sunglasses in London. You couldn't really see his eyes. But backstage, behind the scenes, we know. Did you notice it was taking its toll a little bit on him?
No, Floyd's character is just rock solid. Behind the scenes, we're just joking and laughing about our own kind of inside stuff with TMT. He doesn't really talk about the tour at all until he gets there. Then he just turns it on. Floyd, like, people don't know about Floyd. He's an extremely generous, kind-hearted guy, and he's a big joker. But he's never intimidated. He's never scared. He's never worried. He's never, like, I mean, for a guy who's been in, 24 world championship fights, like that's a huge world stage. Like for myself, I would think I'd get nervous as hell going up on there, but he's always together. He's so rock solid with that. Like for me, I look at him and I'm like, how does he do this? So I wouldn't even be able to explain how he does it, but I can tell you that no, it absolutely doesn't. It absolutely doesn't get to him. He's stone cold in that sense, and there's nothing that can get by him.
Talk to us about the interaction between you and Conor during the World Tour. Did it all kick off in Brooklyn, or was there some stuff behind the scenes that we never got to see even before Brooklyn that sort of kicked it all off?
No, I saw Conor kind of looking over a few times and kind of noticing Floyd's team. So maybe he was preparing to say something. I'm not sure, but he hadn't for the first two. So I figured he's probably not going to, he probably wouldn't, talk to Floyd's team. Like Floyd didn't talk to his team. It's kind of like they're on the level that they're on. They're on the most elite level. So I'd imagine they would never want to talk to the teams like in terms of like the levels that we're on. I'm not to discredit myself or anything, but let's be realistic. These guys are elite athletes, and for the lack of a better expression, rich as hell now. Like Conor, rich as hell too after this fight. So, I mean, why would he be arguing with guys that are security or whatever it is? So I figured it wouldn't happen, but it did. In Brooklyn, basically, Floyd said, point to the easy work, and we pointed at him, and he started saying the tap out stuff, and I think that was getting to Conor. So he kind of drew his attention to that, and he looked over at me, and the other guy, Ray, and he said, look at these two Jews heads. So I guess at that point he probably had enough of it, and he had to go at me. So I thought it was great. So he looked at me, he said, look at these two Jews heads, and Floyd, I can't remember what Floyd said after that. Floyd said something after that, so I think he walked away for a bit, and then he came back and said some stuff to me like, you're on juice. And I said, and I told him right there, I said, no, never. I said, I'm not. I said, I'll do a USADA test right now, and I'll bet you $100,000 that I'm not. And he said, yeah, right. I said, I'll take it right now. I'll take the blood right after the show. And it kind of got him like, no way. And he said, this is, I think he said something along the lines like, this is a real body or something. And then I just told him, I said, you know what, when you're standing next to me, I said, put on a shirt because you're embarrassing yourself standing next to me. I figured it would just razz him up a little bit. I thought it was funny. In no way, shape, or form am I sitting up there mad. I explain it like this. I explain it like, for you guys in Australia, love that, what is it, that Australian rugby?
Yeah.
Over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about all of that. So let's say you and your best friend are watching an Australian rugby game. You like one team, your best friend likes the other. You guys are going to swear at each other, throw chips at each other, and do whatever you do while you're sitting there. You don't want to bash your other friend's head in, but you're going to talk that shit. So I kind of explain it like that. Like, it's a sport. This is like one of my best friends about to fight Conor McGregor. So I'm sitting up there, my heart pounds and my blood gets going, and I'm talking, and I talk that. He came up to me and kind of initiated. So I went in and I talked that shit. But people throw it out of context. Oh, I thought you were going to throw him off the stage, or Conor was going to knock you out. And I'm like, come on, guys, come on. They just push it to another level. It's just some shit talking. It's fun. It's good for promotion, and it's not on the level where people are going to kill each other.
Sure. And I mean, I think a lot of people were fascinated with it because Conor McGregor's team came over. A guy called Dylan Dennis, who's now a Bellator fighter, his jiu-jitsu guy. Artem Lobov was there. Owen Roddy was there. Did you know who these guys were, and how was your relationship with those guys? Was there any back and forth with those guys?
Not really. I'm a big MMA fan. I love MMA fighting. I watch pretty much all the UFCs. I love it. But I didn't recognize those guys. I think they said one of them was a UFC guy and the others are trying to get in the UFC or something. I'm not sure. But there's the blonde guy. There was another shorter guy that kind of looked like he was a Russian dude or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was told that they're all fighters and stuff like that. But I mean, no, I didn't really know exactly who they were or where they fight and stuff like that. So I'm sure I knew that Conor hangs out with all MMA guys, and I think someone said they were all part of his training team or something, if that's correct.
Yeah. Well, basically, you had two training partners, and Owen Roddy is one of his coaches. I'm just curious because one of the more, I guess, interesting moments, and one of the moments where it did seem to obviously frustrate Conor McGregor and his team was when Floyd said, "Form Voltron." Talk to us about what exactly that was. First of all, where did the name come from, and is that something that's been practiced before? Is this a regular sort of, I guess, arsenal that you and the rest of the security team are well familiar with, or is this something that you guys sort of did for this tour? What's the story there?
I guess it was just a spur of the moment thing. He's mentioned Voltron before. We just joked around about it amongst ourselves and stuff like that. That was like the first time he said it, like in a public type display like that. So,
what were the jokes, Greg?
Yeah,
I'm curious when you guys are sort of shooting the shit backstage. Where did Voltron come from?
Voltron's that cartoon from back in the day. He looks like a transformer where a whole bunch of them come together and build this big build the big robot that kicks ass. Mm-hmm. So that's where that came from. But basically, when he said Form Voltron, it's just us getting in a single file not single file, sorry, just like a line. We were just like shoulder to shoulder line. We weren't trying to like what people think. We weren't trying to like attack Conor or anything. We're not trying to do that. We were just standing in a line, and we're just going to stand there. And I guess his guys came in right away, which, I mean, as they should. We would have done the same thing. They came in right away, and that's when it became kind of a little scuffle and pushing back and forth and stuff like that, and a little shit talking back and forth. But they're at the end of the day, they're professionals and they're doing their job. I don't blame them for what they did at all, because we would have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, Conor McGregor targeted some other people. Showtime, the Money team. Steven Espinoza, for example, was a casualty of the trash talk. What did you think about all that? What did you think about Conor sort of focusing on Steven? Because Steven looked like Steven looked like he was pretty bothered by the whole thing.
First of all, Steven's a great guy. He's always treated me with a ton of respect. He's a very humble, down-to-earth guy. I like him a lot. In terms of the whole show itself, I loved it. It was just funny. I was laughing when he was making fun of me. It was good. He puts on a good show. I will say that Conor puts on a good show, and he talks a lot of funny shit, and it's fun to listen to. It's fun to be a part of.
Talk to us, Greg, about obviously, we only really saw your job during the presses and whatever was, whatever videos were put online. But what was it like going through that whole week, being security, having to keep Floyd Mayweather safe? Were there any interesting parts? I mean, you'd be seeing fans and people from, essentially all over the world. What was that like? And were there any interesting moments for you as a security guy?
Yeah, in terms of what we do, wise, I would say. Everything is pretty much the same, but there is one thing that I took note to was the fact that the celebrity in Floyd Mayweather was heightened by 10 times. Like everywhere we go, it's on a new level. I thought I had seen everything, and I was wrong. And I think these two guys are the most famous guys on this planet right now, and I've been part of that, and I've seen it, and the crowds are going crazy, and there's hundreds, thousands of people like crowding around in the New York streets or in London. It's unbelievable. It's a nice thing to see, and I thought it couldn't get any bigger, and you know what? It did. It did.
I mean, there would be a lot of obstacles for you in those situations. Lots of people rushing up, trying to get photos. Also, people obviously who aren't fans of Floyd trying to get close. Who knows? Drunk people, violent people. What was your biggest obstacle to keeping Floyd safe? And did you have any close calls with any crazy fans trying to, I suppose, attack him or get too close?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, we're just the crowds. The bigger the crowds are, the more intense they are, the heavier they are to kind of keep back. Because I mean, you can imagine you have 300-400 people pushing forward. They're hard to hold back. But we've been doing it for so long now that we know exactly how to warm up and keep the crowds back. But other than that, no, they were a little heavier to hold back. But it's nothing that we haven't done before, basically.
And I'm just curious, there's this video going around, Greg, where this guy, basically a guy, I believe, from London or England, he basically got these passes, he photocopied them, and he kind of made his way into Floyd's entourage. He was part of Conor McGregor's, but he snuck in, he had zero credentials, just a guy off the streets, but, I mean, dressed well and everything. Did you see that? And what was your reaction? Did you have a bit of a laugh about that?
Yeah, well, the security in London out there, I mean, there was no police out there and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that would be on them for getting them in. But I think I saw the part where he was walking by our dressing room. He definitely didn't try to walk in our dress, because we wouldn't, no matter if you have credentials or not, that's the last line of defense is to get into our dressing room. That would never have happened. So I'm not sure how he got in or how they let him in, but I mean, they might have to heighten their security. That doesn't happen in Vegas because everything's like barcoded or whatever they call it, and it's got like holograms on it and stuff. You can't do that in Vegas. The security is just ridiculous out here, and I don't think anyone would be crazy enough to try. So he must have seen a weakness in the system out there and been able to get in.
So, I mean, years and years of guarding Floyd, you guys have a very, very close friendship and relationship. And all those years of guarding him, have you ever had any close calls? Has anything ever happened? Have you ever had a close call story that you can share with us?
The $1 million question, huh?
Yeah.
I've never stumped on a question, but close calls wise, like in terms of like fighting or stuff like that, or people attacking him, you say?
Yeah, like people, getting too close to him or trying to be violent, or you being there at the right moment to stop something, horrible from happening.
I mean, we've had a couple of things. I won't get into it, but it's always professionally taken care of, handled, and we do it to the best of our ability. But in terms of people attacking him, he gets a lot of respect. I mean, you see a lot of people say things about him, maybe on the internet or on TV, but when they see him in person, it's always, can I get a picture? I'm a huge fan. And it's always kind of like that. It's never really, I hate you, or let me try to get to you and hit you or something. So, I mean, fans are usually respectful in person, and it's actually, it's good to see that. I don't want to see a lot of fans trying to attack him or anything, but they're usually very respectful, to be honest with you, fans with him, and they actually have a lot of love for him. So
and you're obviously a big guy, Greg, yourself, and I mean, listening to you now, you sound like one of the most pleasant human beings around, and obviously you've got horses as well. So what's not to like? But do you practice any martial arts? What do you use if a situation breaks out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with martial arts. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I used to train out there. I used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with my buddy out there, and wrestling as well. And he trained at a very high level. He was close to pro, so I was with him for about 5 years. We were training, and then out here in Vegas, I keep my skills going with a couple of the guys. But in terms of a pro level MMA guy, or one of those guys, I won't claim to be that at all. I have my own kind of little skill set. I've done karate in the past. I grew up playing hockey my whole life. I've never been a stranger to fighting. So, I mean, but the best thing is ability to be able to use your words and not have to get in a situation. So security, what people don't understand a lot of times are like, what do you have to do? I bet you beat up a bunch of people. That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to keep your client, and in my case, my friend, one of my best friends, Floyd Mayweather, out of legal problems, out of problems in general. And my thing is, how you doing, guys? What happened? Why are you angry, or something like that? And I'd rather dissipate a situation than escalate. That's my forte. I'm a calm, cool, collective guy. On the stage, I might not have looked like that. I think they got a couple pictures where I look like I look like some kind of monster, but it was great. That's all in fun. And but yeah, like in my regular life, I have real life things I can do. I don't want to cause problems or cause fights with people. So in my line of work, the best thing to do, we call it the mouthpiece. Your mouthpiece is your best asset.
Well, Greg, as we wrap up, I suppose the other $1 million question is how this fight plays out. We've seen what Conor McGregor can do in the world of MMA. We know Floyd Mayweather is one of the best boxers of all time, and defensively, he looks amazing. But the questions are there that people are wondering. At 40 years old, with his hands being damaged and some time away from boxing, can he beat Conor McGregor? What is your prediction here? How do you see this fight going? I mean, you would have seen Floyd Mayweather training for this one. How's he looking? How do you think this fight will go?
Well, he looks great. He always looks great. He's always in great shape. He's a freak of nature when it comes to that. In terms of the prediction, I don't know. We'd have to just see. I mean, he is getting older. He's had 2 years off. Conor's a tough guy. I don't know how he boxes. I know there's a lot of stuff going around and people talking shit about Conor, but I mean, I'm the type of guy, if I don't see it, I don't believe it. So I can't really take what people say. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, his stand-up skills are great. I've seen Conor in the octagon, and he can take 1,000,000 punches and he can give 1,000,000 punches. So, I mean, we'll just have to see. I know Floyd has a very strong chin, so I'm sure there's going to be a couple exchanges going back between them, and I think it'll be a very entertaining fight because I think that Conor will take the fight to Floyd. Floyd will showcase his defensive skills, and I believe he'll showcase some of his offensive skills as well. Being this whole thing, I think that Pretty Boy is back, and I think he's back for one last run, and he might put that on showcase in the ring. So in terms of prediction of the outcome of the fight, Floyd wins, of course, but I don't know how. Can he stop him? Maybe. Will he win in a decision? 100% if it goes to decision. I'd like to see him put on a good show. That's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like the fans to be able to come out of this one and say it was a great show, and they were happy, and it was money well spent, and it can silence all the people that say that this is like a bullshit fight, but it's not. I think it's amazing, and the world needs this fight. This fight, boxing fans need this fight, and I can't wait.
Well, there you go, guys. The fight is August 26th, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Greg, we hope it's nice and easy and cruisy for you. We hope the next few weeks are nice and easy, and obviously on August 26th, when the world will be watching, and obviously a lot of fans will be there. It's nice and cruisy for you, and we appreciate you jumping on. I think, like you mentioned, the photos of you and what people saw at the press conference, I think people listening to you now, they'll realize what an incredibly nice, humble, just all-around good guy you are. So we appreciate your time. We know it's a crazy schedule, and thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Appreciate the words, guys. Thank you for having me on.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is the 9th-ranked UFC welterweight who is on a 4-fight win streak, coming off a big win over Dong Hyun Kim in September. He is currently ticking off names on his embarrassment tour and is making his Submission Radio debut. Colby Covington, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on Submission Radio.
It's our pleasure. Now, Colby, it's great to have you on the show, but we're wondering, what's life been like since your Singapore win? What have you been up to?
Oh, man, I just been busy, man, traveling, training, just hanging out with friends, just all over the place. So it's been good.
And where are you joining us right now? Sounds like you're going for a bit of a drive. Where are you heading off to?
Yeah, I'm actually driving from Miami, Florida to Coconut Creek, Florida. It's about an hour drive. So I just got done training in Miami with my best friend, Jorge Masvidal, and just heading back home right now to get some food and go to sleep.
Cool. Well, let's go back to a few months ago before your fight in Singapore. You were coming off a great win in December over Brian Barberena, and then you seemingly struggled to get a fight booked, even though you were calling out everybody under the sun. Why do you think it took so long for the UFC to book you against Dong Hyun Kim?
I don't know, man. Honestly, I pondered that question, and I thought about that a lot. I was like, what's going on, man? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to go to the street corner and sell my soul and let the UFC know that I'm willing to fight for pennies? Like, what do I got to do, I had to go to the street and beg for a fight. I put a sign up saying, we'll fight for food, because that's the point I got to. I was willing to fight for food. So, I don't know what the deal was. A lot of guys were ducking me. That was half the problem. And then the other half, I don't know, man. That was the UFC had to see my worth. So, I don't know. I'm just happy to get active and stay active.
Yeah. Well, we saw your efforts, and we remember that video you were talking about. I mean, the lengths you went to get a fight were amazing. And we remember speaking to you at UFC 202, where you mentioned the tough financial position you were in after the Wally Alves fight. Was this sort of another tough time for you, seeing as fighting is obviously how you make a living, and you were on the sidelines a lot longer than you expected?
Yeah, man, that sucks. I mean, I think it was 6 or 7 months after my win over Brian Barberena, since I got the fight with Dong Hum Kim. So that's too long. We only get paid if we fight. So I'm hoping they could keep me more active. Let me get fights every 3-4 months. I'm healthy, I'm active, and I'm in the prime of my career. So I'm ready to make this run to the title. So I just want them to keep me active so I can show that I'm the best in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there was a great win in Singapore, but do you feel confident that this time the UFC will get you a fight quicker? And has anyone spoken to you about when the next fight announcement might be?
No, I haven't really heard too much from my manager. He said they were looking for fights. I think they offered me to a couple guys, Neil Magny, Carlos Condit, maybe some guys like that, but, they didn't want to take the fight. So, now it's just about finding the right matchup. I want to go forward. I want the big test. I want to show my true colors. And the only way I can do that is against the big test. So I'm looking for someone inside the top 5. So when the UFC comes to me with someone in the top 5, I'll be the first one to sign the dotted line.
Wow. Well, before we get to some of those potential names, just talk to us about this embarrassment tour that you're currently on. What's the story behind the name, and why are you looking to embarrass the welterweight division, Colby?
I mean, dude, honestly, it speaks for itself. I mean, I haven't lost a round in my career. Okay, I have one loss, lucky fluke submission loss. Like, everybody knows, even the UFC knows, I showed up with a fractured rib. I have the x-rays to prove it. I had to get cortisone shots all week before the fight. It was a fluke win. It is what it is. Besides that, all my wins have been dominant. They've been embarrassing. I've been embarrassing everybody my whole career. Never lost a round. Never even lost a second of a round. So, that's what this is, the embarrassment tour to the title, man. I'm going to embarrass everybody in the top 5, anybody in the top 10. There's not a bad matchup for me. Everybody's a good matchup for me. So the name speaks for itself. It's the embarrassment tour.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. But before we get to some potential next opponents, Colby, you posted a video on Twitter last month where you mentioned that people don't know the trials and the tribulations that you've been through in your life, and how you were sleeping on couches while your mother worked 3 jobs to provide for the family. Just talk to us about that time in your life, because I think a lot of people don't really know much about it. What exactly happened?
I mean, everybody's had their struggles in life. I'm not going to act like I'm the only one that's ever went through. Growing up, I didn't have the best upbringing. I had to work hard for everything I had. My mom had to work hard just to provide food on the table so I could even, get the right nutrition to be able to train. So, everybody's had tough times. I grew up in a tough neck of the woods, so you can expect me to have no fear, man. When I was a little kid, I was the kid that was on the block running around with no shoes and picking big fights with the 300-pound, middle schoolers when I was in elementary school. So, I got no fear, and I really do believe in myself. And the trials and tribulations that I've been through have made me into who I am now, and it's going to serve me great into what I'm going to do in the future.
And talk to us about that relationship with your mom. Now you're obviously a big star in the world of MMA. Is she proud of you? Does she watch your fights? What's the relationship like now?
Yeah, she watches my fights. She's a big hardcore combat sports enthusiast. So, she watched every one of my wrestling matches. She watches every one of my fights. She loves it. She's very proud of me. And at the end of the day, that's all I want to do. I want to make my mom proud. I want to make my dad proud. They put so much into me. They sacrificed their life so that I could be in a position where I am now to chase my dreams and fulfill my dreams just by sacrificing their life for me. So, I just want to keep making them proud, and I'm not going to I know I'm not going to truly make them proud or make myself proud until I get that world championship, because that's what I promised them since I was a little kid. When I was a little 6-year-old kid, I said, Mommy, I'm going to be a world champion. I promise you, I'll work hard for it. I'll bring all the financial struggles. I'll take care of everything. Like, I'm going to do good for this family because I see what you're doing for me. You're sacrificing your life for me. So I'm going to give everything to this, Mom, and I'm going to be a world champion someday. So, I've seen it in my dreams. I promised my mom since a little kid, I'm not going to be proud or content, and I know they're not going to until I get that world championship.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's talk about some of the potential opponents that obviously you've called out. I know you said that you want someone in the top 5, but you and Rafael dos Anjos, you guys had some back and forth not too long ago, and you've really wanted to fight him for a long time. Where exactly did that rivalry and that sort of beef stem from, Colby?
It just kind of stemmed from when he was coming up to welterweight. Just the way he was acting, man. He was acting entitled. He was acting like, give me the big fights. Dude, you just lost 2 fights in a row at 155. You're going up a weight class and you think you're going to get a top 5 fight for a #1 contender spot? I wanted to let him know that this is my division now. If you want to get to the title, you're going to have to go through me because I'm trying to get to the title too. So, I was being real. I said the truth, and everything I did was real, man. He's a fake champion. He's an ex-champion. He's on the decline. I mean, I tried to get a fight with him and asked multiple times when he didn't have a fight scheduled, and the UFC offered it to him, and they wanted to make the fight, and he wouldn't take the fight. He was acting entitled, like, no, I want a bigger fight, this and that. So that kind of pissed me off, you know, and we had some heated words in Singapore after our fights. I just let him know that he was next, and he better hope that he don't sign that contract because I'm going to hurt him.
Mm-mm. And just on that thing that happened in Singapore, what was his reaction to that? And did it at all have the chance of escalating or, you know, anything spiraling out of control, or did he just sort of take it on board and walk off?
Nah, honestly, man, he knows deep down inside. Being honest, man to man, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying the truth. He knows that he doesn't want to fight me. He knows that I'm a better fighter than him. He knows that if he got in the octagon with me, I would embarrass him. So, you know, he kind of just curled up like the little bitch that he is, and he just took it like a bitch because that's what he is. He's my bitch. And I said the same thing. You know, I said, hey, if we're in jail, this motherfucker will be doing my laundry because he's a bitch.
Wow, that's an awesome line. And speaking of lines, Colby, I have to ask you this because you posted this crazy thing on Twitter a few months ago. I think it was in March, where you did a mock of Rafael's Gmail account and some of the emails he sent and received. And honestly, it was one of the funniest and most creative things we've seen in a long time. I'm just curious, how did it come about? Did you make it yourself, or was it your manager who made it, or what's the story there?
Dude, all I gotta say is that dude should keep his shit more tight and locked, man. It's not my fault I was able to get a hold of his email account.
Oh, that's hilarious. Look, I mean, we know what's been going on in the division. Things are switching and changing all the time. But do you still want to fight him? Or are you looking forward now to someone who's ranked above you?
At the end of the day, I'm definitely looking forward to someone that's above me. I want to fight for a title. I've made no, you know, I haven't held back in saying that. I feel like I'm ready for it. I've well prepared my game, and it's more well-rounded than it's ever been. And I feel on top of my game right now. I want to fight the best guys in the world because I know I can beat them, and I know I can beat them pretty easily. So, you know, if the fight is presented, I'll take the fight, man. I told the UFC, man, they know I'll sign the dotted line if he wants to step up, but he don't want to step up, man. He's sitting on the sidelines. He's probably getting fat because he doesn't got steroids anymore. But, I mean, I would love to fight. He's a former champion. It's going to look good on my resume when I knock him out. But you know, he's not going to take the fight, man. He's gonna sit and be like a little diva, entitled. Oh no, I want this. I want Nate Diaz. Oh, I want Nick Diaz. Like, he's calling for the Diaz bros like a fucking idiot. Those guys don't even want to fight, man. Why don't you fight someone relevant that's in the division right now and ahead of you in the rankings, and why don't you fight him to see if you want to get to a shop? He don't want to. He's a scared little bitch. So, you know, I'll take the fight any day, man. I hope I get Rafael dos Anjos. I would love that fight.
And just speaking of things that are happening in your division, this past weekend we saw Gunnar Nelson lose over there in Scotland. What was your thought on his loss, and did it sort of change your perception as to who you'd want out of him or possibly Santiago?
Yeah, it was crazy. You know, I thought that maybe the UFC was going to set me and Gunnar up next because they thought he was going to win or something, but Santiago was able to get in there and win. But, you know, it was kind of weird. You know, Gunnar was making excuses after the fight. He got poked in the eye, but my buddy just sent me like a little gif of like the thing, like after he dropped, he wobbled Santiago with a hook. Santiago put his hands out and poked him pretty good, like a couple of times. So I was like, wow, that was a little weird. That was a little sketch, you know. So, you know, he was able to get the win and the knockout, but it was a weird ending and weird fight. But you know, the thing is that Santiago's that American top team. I trained with him. I don't know how that puts us, but you know, if he's in the way of my title, this is a one-man sport. So if he gets in my way, man, I'm not scared to fight him, dude. I know that's a pretty easy matchup for me. So
you're a man who seems like he studies the division a lot. When you look at the names, let's make things a little bit easier. I mean, you said that Neil Magny, you know, that fight doesn't seem like it's going to happen. You sort of doesn't seem like RDA is going to fight you either. So are there any names that stand out to you when you look at the division? Obviously, that Carlos Condit fight doesn't look like it's going to happen. Anyone you have your eye on in particular to make the matchmaking a lot easier for the UFC?
Dude, the UFC knows I'm the easiest guy to match up with because I've never turned down a fight. I've never not showed up to a fight. I showed up to 4 of my fights injured, man. Broken foot, fractured rib, torn MCL against Brian Barberena. Dude, I show up to fight every fucking time. They know I'll sign the contract to fight anybody in the fucking world. I'm not scared to fight anybody. Let's fight. I want to fight them all anyways. I know I'm the best. I'm not worried about who I fight. So whoever the UFC gives me, I'm going to take. But at the same time, I'm looking for those guys in the top 5, Cerrone, Lawler, Condit. Whoever's ahead of me, this is a sniping tour. I'm going to snipe them down and embarrass them one by one to the title.
Have you had a chance to try and ask the UFC to potentially fight Stephen Thompson when his knee is 100%? And if you have, what has the response been there? Is he someone that you'd like to fight? Because seemingly he is right up at the top of the division, but he will be ready soon, and there's not really a fight there for him yet.
Yeah, Stephen Thompson, he's not going to get a title shot since he's already gotten 2. So I would love to fight the guy. I asked the UFC for him too, but, I think they're going to do Stephen Thompson versus my buddy Jorge Masvidal. So, I think they're going to make that fight when Stephen gets healthy. But, I would love to get Stephen Thompson. I'm looking for that fight that gets me the number 1 contender spot and ready for a title shot. Anybody ahead of me, man, they're all going to get embarrassed one by one. This is the embarrassment tour, and this ain't just words, man. You're about to find out the truth soon. I promise you that.
And just on Jorge, Colby, just curious, because he is your best friend, is he the exception if the UFC try to match you up with Jorge? Would that be the one fight that you would sort of look at and say, look, no, we're too close to do that, or is Jorge sort of on the list as well?
No, dude. Jorge's my best friend, dude. Like, he's the only exception. I don't got any other friends. Jorge's like my only friend, man. If you knew the stuff we've been through, just through this MMA journey together, we've been at the lowest of lows, and that's my best friend. That's the only guy, like, we would only fight for a title. We've talked about it. Like, that's the only guy. If the UFC is going to throw money for us, we're only fighting for a title. We're not going to, it doesn't make sense to fight in the division in the top 10 because we're best friends. We train together every day. So, yeah, he's the exception, man. We're not going to fight. The only fight that we'll ever do is if it's for a title.
What's the story there, Colby? What makes you and Jorge so close? Like, if you had to name one example, if someone's like, why are you guys best friends? What's a story that you've been through together that made you guys, I guess, bond so close?
Man, just the sacrifices we made for each other to help each other out, MMA is a tough journey, man. There's not a lot of money in it in the beginning, and 7-8 years ago when we were struggling to get fights, my first couple fights, man, I was making $500. Two professional fights, I got paid. I didn't get paid. It was free. I had to fight for free just to give the other guy my ticket sales so he would fight me. So, we were living together in an apartment for a year, and we grew up together pretty much, in this MMA journey. And we went through a lot together, and just the struggles that we've been through together, it's made us so much stronger. And, we've had these crazy dreams, we always knew that we were going to be number 1 and number 2 in the world. And it's closer than ever right now. And I promise you that we're the 2 best guys in the division. So.
Well, UFC 214 has a lot of possible opponents for you, depending on what happens during the event. Of course, Donald Cerrone versus Robbie Lawler, and we've got Damian Maia taking on Tyron Woodley. So out of those potential opponents, away from the champion, is there a particular fighter or a fight you'll be keeping a very close eye on to see who you might possibly fight next? And will you be there at UFC 214 to possibly challenge someone live?
Yeah, I'm going to go to UFC 214 and check it out. I'm looking for all those guys. If Damian Maia loses, if he wins, whatever, I want to fight Damian Maia. That's a pretty easy style matchup for me. You look at what Rory McDonald did to him, and I'm a little bit better version of Rory McDonald. So, the loser of Cerrone Lawler, because they might give them the title shot to the winner of that next. So I'll take the loser if it's Cerrone, if it's Lawler, either one, dude. I want that big fight. So I'll have my eyes on those guys, and I'm not gonna be a dick. I'm not gonna go out there and challenge them live. They got their fights to worry about, so I'll let them worry about that. But as soon as they're done, then they better be ready for me because I'm coming.
Wow. And talk to us about Maia, because, you've spoken about how you love to take guys down and take their soul. And obviously, Damian Maia is a guy who kind of likes to do that as well. What do you think about him as the next challenger? And who do you think wins out of that one between Woodley and Maia? Who are you expecting to have their hand raised at the end of the night?
Man, that's an interesting fight because Tyron Woodley, he doesn't have very good jiu-jitsu defense. Like, his jiu-jitsu is pretty whack, to be honest. I've rolled with him a couple times on the ground, and his submission defense is pretty loose. It's pretty bad. So if Maia gets his back, he'll definitely finish him. If he gets him to the ground, which he could, maybe he pulls guard and does some shit and he does some tricky stuff and gets to the back, he'll definitely submit Woodley. But, Woodley's a pretty good wrestler. He's average, he's decent. He's a breaker mentally. He's a quitter and he can't go hard. That's why he doesn't wrestle anymore. But he has pretty good takedown defense. And if he keeps it on the feet, he has an advantage in striking because Damian Maia is one-dimensional. He only knows how to take guys down and submit them. He can't fight on the feet. He's scared to punch. He's scared to get punched. So, you know, I think it's a toss-up, man. I think Maia could get him down and finish him and submit him, and Woodley could also, you know, be explosive, maybe catch him with the right hand. So, you know, that's a toss-up fight, but, you know, I'll probably go with Maia. I think he'll get him down and submit him.
I'm curious. You mentioned how he's a quitter and he doesn't want to wrestle anymore. What do you mean by that? I'm just curious what you mean.
He's just mentally weak, man. In the wrestling world, it's mentally weak. You know, he's a breaker. That's what we call it. You know, he breaks. Mentally, he's not there, man. He's an explosive, athletic athlete, but he's not a fighter, a true fighter. He's not a warrior. And it showed in wrestling, you know. It showed in college. It showed, you know, it shows in the training room. You know, he doesn't like to go hard. He doesn't like to grind with the guys because he can't do that anymore, man. He's older. His body's breaking down, and you know he doesn't have a cardio gas tank. You know, that's why you don't see him wrestle really in fights anymore. He took down Thompson like one time in 2 fights, and Thompson's the easiest guy to take down in the division. The guy he'll fall over if you blow wind on him. So, you know, I just think that Tyron Woodley has no gas, and he's a quitter, man. If you get him in a tough fight, he will quit. I promise you that. But, you know, you got to make him work. You got to put him up against the fence. You got to get in the clinch. You got to elbow. You got to knee his body. You got to wrestle, make him feel that lactic acid in his arms, the buildup from having to sprawl and defend takedowns and get in hard grappling exchanges. That stuff's not easy, man. That's the toughest part of the game. So, you know, that's why I say he's a quitter, because you get him in a tough fight, man, that guy will melt within 3-4 rounds.
Wow. Colby, really appreciate the time you're giving us. We'll let you go in just a moment. I have to ask, though, because you've obviously called out Tyron before after your fight in Singapore, and, you know, you've been pretty uncensored when speaking about him, which is kind of crazy because obviously Jorge is your training partner and you guys are best friends, whereas Tyron, it kind of seems pretty contrasting. Why the call out despite being, you know, teammates with Tyron?
He's not my teammate. What are you talking about? He's not. I don't believe he's my teammate. He trains at Duke Rufus, man. He left American Top Team 3-4 years ago, and he's been training most of his time at Duke Rufus. So I don't consider that guy a teammate. We don't train together anymore. We used to back in the day when he was at American Top Team, but you know, he does most of his training camps at Duke Rufus. Yeah, he'll come to American Top Team and show face because he's trying to keep it cool here. He knows there's a lot of young up-and-coming studs like me and Jorge who he does not want to be in that octagon with. So, you know, he's not my teammate, man. I don't consider that my teammate. He's an enemy now.
And I mean,
enemy number one.
You've spoken about how you guys used to train for a while back. What were those training sessions like? What was it? Describe what was it like sparring with Tyron, and in the grappling training and stand up? Did you get the better of him? Was it a close one? What do you remember from doing that with him?
I just remember it being easy. I was like, dude, this guy is so pathetic, dude. He's like, he doesn't like it tough. He doesn't like things hard. You know, he doesn't like relentless pressure on him. When he feels pressure, he breaks. Like, just sparring with him, you know, all I had to do was throw combinations and just fucking get on the inside with him, push him against the cage, and literally he'd be broken within 5 to 7 minutes. The guy, he just doesn't like it tough, man. I'm a diva, I'm this, I'm the UFC champ, I'm doing movies, like, I'm a pretty boy, like this and that. He's not a real fighter, man, I'm telling you. He's going to get exposed soon, I promise you that. You know, like, it wasn't competitive. Like, when we're on the ground grappling, his submission defense is real bad. It gets him in submission. When we wrestled, I took him down pretty easy. He couldn't take me down. When we sparred, I just put the pressure on him, got on the inside, you know, and he hated that. He just hated it where he had to make those big muscles have to work because you need oxygen to get those muscles to work. And when you get those muscles tired, he falls over and breaks. So, you know, it wasn't very competitive. I'm very excited if I can get that matchup in the near future, and I will be very confident. And I'm sure the odds makers will probably make me the favorite too.
Wow, I'm not going to lie, Colby. We're very excited to see you back in the octagon as soon as possible. And given what you've gone through, obviously, given the breaks in between, you know, obviously sooner is better. So let's make it easy for them. Let's make it easy for the matchmakers. As we let you go, you're on this embarrassment tour. Do you have any message to the welterweight division? Anything you want to say to all the contenders and potentially your next opponent who might even be the guy fighting in a couple of weeks, UFC 214?
You guys are pathetic. Step your fucking game up.
Well, there you guys go. Make sure to follow Colby on Twitter and Instagram at Colby Cov MMA. And we can't wait to see what fighting to get next. Thank you so much for your time and coming on to Submission Radio. Have a great day. Thanks, Colby.
Much love and respect, guys. Have a great night.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a former Strikeforce champion, UFC middleweight champion, currently ranked third in the UFC's middleweight division and one of the most dangerous men in the world. He's Luke Rockhold, and he's kind enough to join us back on the program today. Luke, welcome back to the program. How's life?
Life is good. Staying busy. Got a lot of things going on, but I'm excited to get back in the cage, make a fight happen here shortly.
Oh, for sure. And we're excited to talk to you about that. But before that, we want to touch on your crazy life of mystery. Every time we jump on Instagram, you're in a different country. You're like the James Bond of MMA, man. You're truly all across the scene. We see you were in South Africa recently. Tell us, what were you doing there? Were you trying to infiltrate the government? Are you a sneaky spy? What was it like over there?
I'm trying to live, you know. I'm just living my life. Let me live. I had an opportunity to go on a safari and work with a wildlife organization called Wild Ark, doing an anti-poaching wildlife preservation trip and bring awareness to it. So it was a one-of-a-kind trip, once-in-a-lifetime trip, and we just, sent it. Did what we could. It's been very informative. It's the wild. It's truly the wild out there in South Africa.
Is that something that you've sort of always been passionate about, preservation and sort of stopping the poaching of animals? And I'm curious, what exactly made you so passionate about it, Luke?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a naturalist, I guess you could say. I grew up in a town like Santa Cruz, so I've been in touch with surfing and never been prone to hurting animals, I guess you could say. So it's just sad. It's really sad to see what they've done. If anyone's paid attention to what's going on with the rhinos out there, and how they're chopping off their horns and using them as, it's a huge market in China, and they're just poaching those things to extinction pretty much. It's sad to see what they've done, and I've had just an opportunity to go out there and do it, and something positive, something that's that's right. So obviously, I don't feel good about what's happening, and so it was an easy go for me to go out there and bring awareness to that and get to do an amazing safari, in the meantime.
Yeah, and good on you for doing that. That is a major issue that bothers us as well. Maybe one day we can get up there too. But let's talk about the fight world, because last time we spoke to you, were very interested in returning to face Australian's own Robert Whittaker. Of course, he beat Yoel Romero at UFC 213 to claim the interim belt. So the big question is, what did you think of the fight?
It was telling. Whittaker showed a lot of potential in his back fight, and you're wondering how that would carry over in this fight. I liked what he did there, and it seemed real. So I expected him to do well. How he ended off the wrestling of Yoel was the big sign. That kind of proved to me the kid's for real. So good on him, and happy for him and Australia.
That's it. We finally got one, man. It's been well overdue. Just curious, you were obviously campaigning to get an interim belt happening and put in the picture. Was that Whittaker or Romero fight offered to you at all?
No. They were working around that, doing what they could. That's what I wanted. I wanted to build it. I wanted 8 belts on the line. I wanted to, make some movement in the division, and thankfully they did that. So now we have something. I've been wanting to fight myself for some time. I just get delayed week after week, month after month, and I'm pretty sick of it. The division, it's hard to find somebody who wants to fight these days, and so that's relevant, I guess, to some extent. And so now I think I'm finally zeroed in, and I'm going to make something happen here shortly. But, back in, it was June, it was Anderson, they offered me the fight. I accepted the fight. They tried to make the fight. It was a short notice fight. It was about 5 weeks for me, and I was definitely not in shape, but I was willing to go to Brazil and get it done, and Anderson, copped out of that one, and then they switched their gears towards Gegard Mousasi. I was ready to make the fight happen July 8th. That wasn't – they were actually looking at Anderson and Gegard, both for July 8th and 29th, and Gegard obviously went his direction. I don't know his thoughts, but Anderson didn't want to fight, and so I don't know. I'm left in the wind, and I'm pretty sick of it, ready to fight.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are wondering, the matchup between Chris Weidman and Kelvin Gastelume, that was a bit of a weird one. A lot of people thought maybe you versus Weidman in a rematch would have made a lot more sense. Were you surprised when you saw Gastelume would be the one fighting Weidman instead of potentially yourself?
No, it's just another fight to me. Weidman wasn't on my radar really. After his that was 3 losses there, so I definitely wasn't looking into getting back with Weidman. I wanted to get something a little more on the up, and so we'll see. So we'll see who wins that fight and how it goes, and if he were to win, maybe we can jump back in, but we'll see what happens with Gastelum too. You never know what Gastelum is going to do. He's going to stay there, stay here, or go back down to 70. And I have a feeling that he's not going to stick around.
Just curious, what was your reaction when Gegard did go over to Bellator? And I guess how hard was that for you? You're a guy who's in his prime, you're 1 fight removed from being the champion, and you feel like you've got this matchup, Gegard, you express interest in fighting him, you're a top guy, so it was a good fight for him as well, and then you think you've got it, and then it just sort of slips out. What was that feeling like? I guess it would have been pretty deflating, right?
Gegard was the fight. It was the fight to make. It was a fight I've been interested in for some time. I've been watching Gegard and the through the circuits. So they seemingly thought they had the fight done. I waited, and then they postponed it, and then sure enough, he jumped ship. I'm not sure exactly what went wrong with the relationship, but we've lost the fight, and it's time to move on.
At the end of the last month, you told MMA Fighting the division is fucked, no interesting fights. Do you still feel that way? And what makes you think that when you look through the division? Is there really nothing that really interests you in terms of the fights?
At the time, yeah, I mean, we needed some movement. We got a little bit. Something happened at least with Whittaker and Romero, and we'll see what's to come. But there's definitely it's a weird spot right now. The division was so strong, and it got stalled out, and it's got some issues. Some guys won't fight other guys, and we're stuck in a little holding pattern. So we'll see. We will see what comes of the division, But I'm just trying to get a somewhat relevant fight, put myself back to where I need to be.
Do you think Gegard leaving the division, or at least the UFC letting him leave, kind of hurts the division? Because even if if the fight happened now between you guys, that'd be great. And even if it didn't, somewhere down the line, a Rockhold Gegard Mousasi fight would have been great. Do you think it kind of makes it a little bit, I guess, less interesting and hurts the middleweight division in the UFC by him going?
Anytime you lose top tier talent, I think it definitely takes away from the sport. So. He was a tough guy. He obviously proved himself in organization after organization, and that he can compete and he can stay at the top. So it didn't work out.
You're obviously a product of Strikeforce. You're the last Strikeforce champion. Obviously, have a relationship with Scott Coker. I'm just curious, how does Gegard going to Bellator make you think about your own future? Some sort of think you might consider doing the same thing, especially because you were pretty frustrated back in May. Does that sort of cross your mind at all when you see another top guy go to another, I guess, company to sort of be a bit happier?
My focus is getting back a world title, and I know what I'm capable of, and that's what I'm doing. So that's where my attention is turned, and that's where my focus is. That's where I will be.
Well, let's talk about what's next then, because Jacare and Romero both coming off losses. Whittaker, we spoke to him last week. His body's pretty sore. It seems like he's going to be out for quite some time and won't be fighting Bisping for quite some time. When you look at the division, are there any guys at all that stand out to you as the potential interesting fight for you next? Or are you in a position where you're just happy to wait until someone pops up?
Not really happy to wait anymore. So we'll see. we'll see. There's probably a few guys, and we might just have to settle and make something happen. So we are talking. We're in the midst of it, in the heat of it all right now. So we'll see what comes to surface, but something will arise here shortly.
Wow. Can you tell us who's sort of in consideration? Who are some of the names that you're looking at potentially fighting next?
Someone in the top 10.
All right. Is UFC 215 still the goal, or are we working with a different time frame now?
I don't even know what UFC 215 is.
I think, yeah, well, I mean, it's an upcoming, I think it's sort of in the near future, but if you were looking at a perfect time frame to return, because, I mean, you know, we were super excited to see you come down to Melbourne. Obviously, that didn't work out. Then all these issues with the fights coming together. Is there a time frame for you that would be perfect to make this return?
September is looking good. We'll see. My body feels good. I'm ready to fight, and that falls into my time frame. So I don't want to postpone much further than that. And I've been ready to fight since June and July, and we've postponed week after week, and just trying to find the opponent. So I'm pretty sick of it. I am ready to fight, and so I'm sure you'll see something happen here shortly.
And just curious, Luke, because it wasn't that long ago that you and Dana White had a bit of back and forth over Twitter. It was mainly around the interim title, so it looks like that's kind of sorted. The fact that there's talks now, has that all been straightened out now?
Yeah, we're definitely cool. Everything's straight, on good terms.
Well, let's talk about UFC 214, because your teammate and close friend Daniel Cormier will be fighting Jon Jones. It's a pretty exciting fight. A lot of the world's really looking forward to the card in general because it's a great card. How's he looking getting ready for Jon Jones in this rematch? And what's he look like compared to the DC that you saw get ready and fight Jon Jones back in 2014?
DC's looking good. You know, I just got some rounds into him this week. He's sharp. He's up to the game. And, you know, I think his head's in a better place. You know, he's been there. He's done that. It was a different circumstance last time around. So, you know, we'll see what kind of Jon shows up this time. Obviously, there's been a lot of things happen in between everything. So, yeah, I think DC's much better equipped, I'd say, this time around. And, you know, given how the last fight went, I thought it was fairly close, and I think it doesn't take much to turn that thing around and take a couple rounds and take that fight. So I'm excited to see what's to come.
Absolutely, and just curious, will you be in his corner at UFC 214 in just over a week?
I'll be cage side. I'll be there for the fight. He's got his cornerman. I'll be cage side.
Exciting times. I mean, before we let you go, we know you're healthy, you're hungry, you're ready to fight. What is your message to the people out there and the middleweight division? Everybody out there who's, you know, been missing their serve of Luke Rockhold, been missing to see you back in the octagon. What's your message to the middleweight division, everyone out there?
My message is, I'll send my message when I fight. I'll send a big message, and you know, it'll come soon.
A very tight-lipped Luke Rockhold today during the interview. I mean, does this have anything to do with the potential fight with Verdum coming around the corner? Are you trying to lowball us here so we don't know what's happening?
There's nothing I would love more than taking on of crap. I'd love to. If there's an option there, let's do that. That would be my option. So. We've been talking with the matchmakers. They've had their meetings, and we should hear back shortly.
I know you can't tell us who it is you're fighting, but for the longest time, your plan has always been come back in style, make a message. You're saying now how you want to send a big message with your fight, and then potentially fight for the title next. Do you think whoever it is that you're going to be fighting next, do you think you'll be in a position where you can do that? A good win over this person, whoever it is, could put you in contention straight away.
I think my performance will speak for itself. Yeah, I think I'll go out there and I'll show you. You know, time away has not hurt me. I feel as sharp as ever, and I'll be right back on top here shortly.
All right, well, there he is, guys. Luke Rockhold, he's like a switchblade. He's sharp on both edges. When he's not saving animals in South Africa and kite surfing and taking care of business, he's getting ready to come back and shock the world with another impressive performance. Luke, we can't wait to see you back in the octagon. Thanks so much for finding the time to speak to us, guys. Make sure to follow Luke on Twitter at Luke Rockhold. And we look forward to seeing you up at UFC 214. We're flying up for the event, so excited to see your teammate DC in the main event. That should be a lot of fun. Thanks so much, Luke.
Definitely. I'll see you guys there.
Hey, this is Jimmy Manuel. You listen to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Joining us here on the program is a man who needs a very little introduction. You know him from his amazing work with Severe MMA, the podcast that just keeps on giving. He also does great work with Sherdog. And he joins us here on Submission Radio to break down some of the hot topics in the world of MMA. Of course, I'm talking about Sean Sheehan, who is known for his useless fact of the day on Twitter. Sean, welcome to the program. Give us a useless fact to kick things off.
I actually just tweeted one about 5 minutes ago. Daniel Cormier has less UFC light heavyweight title defenses in 2016 than Jon Jones.
Whoa, useless fact of the day. Man, this needs to be an audio thing, and then at the end, me and Casper go, useless fact of the day, like to wrap it all up.
Yeah, I need a little sting. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Is it hard coming up with those? Because, like, I'm not going to lie, I follow this Facebook page. It's called Shit Facts, and I absolutely love it. They've got facts like that as well. Like, a six-pack of beer is called a six-pack because there are 6 beers in the pack. Does it ever get hard thinking of those kind of little facts every day? Do you ever rack your brain? You people think like it's just a little fact, but actually you're up all night thinking of these, Sean.
No, actually, you know, I do the previews for almost probably 95% of the UFC cards, and I'm trawling through Wikipedia, looking at different things, looking at people's records, and I kind of just notice something, and then I go and kind of look through it and see if it's actually, like, I come up with the fact in my head before I actually know it's a fact. So sometimes it leads nowhere, but sometimes then, oh yeah, that's kind of true, and you know, there's just lots of different, like, there's one, Conor McGregor, he's a knockout in every month of the year apart from August. And he's fighting Floyd Mayweather in August, the 26th. So that just makes sense. Like,
that's
what, 13
a pretty good
seconds,
fact, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make sure they're useless, and I think the only way to do that is if you like go to your neighbor's house and say it, and they're like, "We don't care, Sean. Get out of here. It's 3 a.m." And if you say something and it sticks, then you know it's not useless. I was going to say Casper's got his site, and I've got a website called batsandhats.com.
Yeah.
You go on the website, and it's just photos of bats and hats. You just scroll down and you keep looking. Not useless facts, but maybe a useless website you can use to, you know, make the most of your day if anybody's listening out there in the world.
Just to clarify, did you say bats in hats or bats and hats?
Bats in hats. It's just different pictures of bats in different little hats.
Oh, wow.
that is pretty useless.
Let's finish the discussion there. What do you say, fellas? Now,
another episode.
Speaking of useless things, let's talk about this world tour that Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather had. Oh, wow. Sick burn, everybody. We and Casper spoke about the LA leg of the tour, but Sean, now that we've got you on the horn, we want to talk about the rest of this tour and talk about our thoughts and takeaways and any implications that we think there might have been from this wonderful and colorful adventure that Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather had. I guess let's kick it off with Toronto, which I guess was my favorite. What do I mean, I guess? That was my favorite by far of the stops that happened, and probably most relevant and most exciting to talk about. Casper, was this a gleaming light in what was, as Dana White called, a shit show for most of the thing?
Yeah, I guess this one was less shit showish. Well, obviously LA was just all over the place because nobody really knew what to expect other than Floyd Mayweather. I think that the second leg, Conor McGregor had that fire. He I guess didn't really like the way things went in LA, even though, I mean, I know people score that one for Floyd Mayweather, and I would too, but I think it was pretty close. Conor made some pretty good points. That one of the funniest things to come out of that was his back and forth with Floyd Mayweather Sr. I find myself watching that over and over again and just laughing my ass off. And then I think with Toronto, he said, all right, it's business time. I know what it's going to be like. I know what to expect. And it's kind of crazy because I think it was originally going to be in some kind of Sony stage or Sony theater or Sony arena. And then the last second they moved it to the Budweiser stage. And it actually worked out a lot better. I mean, just the back and forth, the school bag jokes, the iconic stare down to kick things off. I will say, though, you and me were talking about this the other day, Dennis. One thing that I thought was... I think one thing that should have been changed is these stare downs at the very beginning of these press conferences or live shows, as you want to call them, where they come out, Conor comes out, stands around for a bit. Then Floyd comes out, makes his 6-hour entrance, and then they just stand there face to face with no security, no nothing. And it's like you want to give this illusion that. Like, for example, you look at the Diaz, both 196 and 202. You look at those press conferences, and it's like they, you go through all this shit talk. You go through all these bad vibes, these hostility, and in the underlying thoughts, you have these thoughts where you're like, man, once they square off, what's gonna happen? This is gonna be crazy. They might fight, something might happen, and it just makes things exciting. Whereas here, you're kind of just blowing the lid straight away. They come in, they stand in front of each other for what feels like hours, no security, nothing, and well, nothing's going to happen. It's all going to be fairly. I mean, they may say a lot of things, they may trade barbs, but nothing's going to happen like that. So I think that's something that's going to be changed. Before I talk about all the stops, what did you guys think, Sean?
I thought it was kind of, it was kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly. At the start, it was very innocent, I thought, from McGregor. Obviously, we saw the Dana White video blog where he's like, I didn't even have anything prepared. I still thought he did pretty well, but, you'd have to nudge that one towards Floyd. I totally agree with what you were saying there about the stare downs and things. And it wasn't just that. I think it was the fact that they were kind of walking around each other and Floyd kept walking in front of him. It was like, you need to kind of, I know we talk about suspension of disbelief for a while, but this is not supposed to be that. This is supposed to be real. And Floyd Mayweather shouldn't be able to walk in front of Conor McGregor like that. They should have to be separated. Maybe it's a little bit different in boxing now because they have that more, in MMA, it's kind of more of maybe a visceral kind of a thing because, people are fighting for maybe a little bit more than they are from boxing. Like a lot of the fights Floyd Mayweather has, they're both going to make a lot of money. Like in MMA, people are maybe fighting to get towards a lot of money. But it's a little bit similar here. But I thought that was a little bit bad because it gave you the thought that Floyd Mayweather has it written in the contract that if McGregor touches him, that the fight is going to be offered, he's going to lose a lot of money or whatever. That took away that element of it. And as you said, with the Diaz, and especially I think with the Aldo tour as well, all those stare downs in that world tour, they were brilliant. And these ones, they were good because there was a lot of shit talk, but they weren't as good as they could have been. And like the tours themselves, I think the first one was good. I thought it was good, even though McGregor was kind of unprepared. The second one was brilliant, the best crowd by a mile. McGregor did very well. Mayweather came back, did pretty well. The third one was just awful. McGregor trying to joke his way out of the kind of the racist claims that were made, and Mayweather coming out in and giving it, playing kind of the victim. Even though he's bad enough himself, and he came out the fourth dead in and used the bad F word, we'll say, and just brought it over the top again. At least though, I think it ended okay. I think after that, they had a bit of a back and forth. They had those 4 or 5 questions from the media, and I think I was watching Sky Sports during the day, which is obviously the big channel here in Ireland and in the UK, and they kind of spliced the best bits from the World Tour. And I was like, if you had just seen that, and which a lot of people I think you would think, oh, this is great. These boys are, they're talking to each other, they're slagging back and forth all the time, and it's great if you missed all the bad bits. So I think they can definitely splice it up well and do something good like that. But there was definitely good bits. There was definitely very bad bits as well.
I'm thinking of some of the bad bits from Brooklyn. I mean, Dougie Fresh, God. Poor guy out there asking people, asking people if they're just happy to be alive, and the Brooklyn crowd just going crazy because they've been sitting around for hours. And Conor McGregor comes out, tries to do his rap, tries to send a present to all the beautiful black women out there. Oh my God, I don't know, Sean. I think all of us are like cringing to the max when that happened. And then because the crowd wasn't going his way, you could just see McGregor in his mind was like, oh crap. And just like ends up finishing his speech on like nothing, and just like was just like, what am I doing up here? Oh my God. But one of the things I will say is I just found the structure of it to be ridiculous. Like Casper mentioned, the stare down at the start was just absolutely stupid. Obviously, we spoke about in the last episode that we felt like there just should have been a long table, UFC style. Everyone had microphones. That way, it really generates a good opportunity to do back and forths and not stand up there and give speeches. But the other thing I was going to say is just the structure of the way this event happened. So for a lot of people who weren't watching the complete coverage, these guys would do a press conference, and then afterwards they would do interviews with the media, and then after that they would do like a press conference. And it was just too much content. It was just too much stuff on the guys, and you could see the guys were visibly getting exhausted, especially Conor McGregor by all this. And Ariel Helwani would speak to him after every press tour, and he could see that going into London, he mentioned to him how it was just too much, and he wanted it to be over. And I think London really kind of showed that Conor McGregor was getting a little bit tired. It was a lot better than Brooklyn, but you can tell this stop was kind of it's good that this was the last stop of the tour. Casper, what did you think of Conor McGregor in the final press conference over there in London?
This one kind of, not to say that I enjoyed it the most, but I found it the most fascinating because to me, and I'm curious what you think after this, Sean, because I feel like a lot of people are saying, Conor McGregor was great in London and he was back to his fine form and things like that. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but like you mentioned, the schedule was insane, and to me, Conor McGregor just looked dead tired. He looked like a man who didn't sleep, and really, it's crazy. You go from Brooklyn, you go from something that probably didn't go great for him, and I feel like Conor McGregor is the kind of guy who's very, very self-critical. If he doesn't go out there and get the crowd and win, I think it's probably going to keep him up. He's probably going to be... It sounded like throughout this whole thing, he was checking out websites, he was checking out coverage, he was very clued into what kind of headlines were swirling around him, and then you leave this Brooklyn presser after doing another media day and this and that and all the scrums, and then you get on a jet and you go to another country, the other side of the world. What kind of sleep are you getting? Probably terrible, if any. And then you have to do it all over again. And then you have to have this pressure of every day you have to top yourself. I mean, there's only so much ammunition you can have. So to me, when I saw Conor McGregor, it reminded me of me when I've had zero sleep and just, my body's falling apart. I'm having to run to the toilet every 2 seconds. I'm sweating like a madman. You could see the sweat pouring off him. I know it's a bit hot in the UK and Europe at the moment because it's sort of summer where you guys are, Sean. But I don't think that really had anything to do with it. I just think that Conor McGregor ran out of steam, and you could see for the first time ever, I've never seen this in Conor McGregor, he wanted the press conference to be over. He sort of came out and I don't know. A lot of people said Conor McGregor won that one. I thought this is Floyd's best one yet. Not to say that Floyd was great, but I think he won. He never really won the crowd other than maybe Brooklyn. But in this one, I just think Conor McGregor looked like he was chasing Floyd. Floyd came out. Conor McGregor was trying to pretend that he was spanking him and all these kinds of things. And I think Floyd, the way he deflected it was by just seemingly not really caring. And I think with these press conferences, the one who wins is the one who cares less. You can have all these great zingers. You can have all these great barbs, but if your opponent sits there and just doesn't give a shit about anything you're saying, then you win. If your opponent sits there and gets pissed off and gets upset and you can see he's uncomfortable, well, then you win. And for all of Conor's great calls in that press conference or whatever you want to call it, I don't know, the way Floyd just sat there not really caring. He wore glasses, which is really smart because when you're so tired on the fourth day, you don't want anybody seeing your eyes, and I think that was really smart. And I don't know, there were just moments where Conor just came off like he was trying too hard to get Floyd's attention, and Floyd kind of came off like a guy who just... He didn't really give a shit. Even when Conor went to sort of, in this sense, extreme lengths when he touched Floyd's head, even then Floyd didn't really seem bothered. And you could see when Floyd was calling him Mr. Tap Out and he was playing that music and Conor just kind of had to sit there and listen to it, you could see he was uncomfortable. And then when Floyd played it again, you could see Conor McGregor getting frustrated. He didn't like it and he was saying, hurry up, you're stalling, let's just get to the stare down. I've never seen that because normally you see Conor McGregor just relishing these moments, enjoying these press conferences, laughing, having fun, poking fun at his opponent, almost as if he could do it all day. And here, he was just done. I've never seen Conor McGregor try and rush to the end of the press conference. And you could see there were things bothering him. You could see he was nodding at points, and I've never seen Conor McGregor just nod along with what someone was saying. Floyd was saying how he was going to knock him out, and rather than Conor McGregor saying, I'm going to knock you out in 4 rounds, he was saying things like, we'll see. So I think the London one was really the apex of it taking it out of Conor McGregor. What did you think, Sean?
I'm not 100% sure. I thought Conor barely won it because I thought that was maybe his smartest one because he kept it short after the Brooklyn one, which was an absolute disaster. He couldn't say anything bad to make it worse because he had made it worse after he had literally thrown fuel on the fire after the comments that people were taking and trying to make sound bad, and he made them sound bad. But he came out in London, kept it short, said what he had to say, and sat down. You could see, I totally agree with you, that he was tired. And But Mayweather came out then, and I thought Mayweather was terrible. He was just saying the same things over and over again. I think McGregor, it wasn't more effective. It was more like, yeah, come on, I just want this to be over. I don't think he was making him mad or anything like that. And McGregor as well, obviously with the homophobia and things like that, and saying we're going to use these foreign fighters. I think Mayweather did a great job of taking back the heel role in London, which McGregor seemed to like rob a little bit in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But I thought the best thing McGregor did actually was the post press conference. That makes sense. The press conference on his own in London.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the best thing of the whole week, to be honest. It was so, as you said, he was so tired. And there was people just throwing questions at him, and he wasn't thinking about them. He was just answering them, and that's when McGregor's always best. You see, like Severe and May obviously have interviewed him down through the years, Andrew and Graham and all the lads, and it's always after training when he's tired and stuff. He always gives the best answers, best interviews, and that one I think phenomenal. It's up actually on our YouTube. It has like almost 700,000 views or something like that, and I think people just loved that. I think it was really, really good. If I was to tell someone to watch one thing from the week, it was that, because you just kind of see the real Conor McGregor, and that's what people love. People don't want him doing a Jeff Ross set up on the stage against Floyd Mayweather, because we know that's not real. We want him to say he's doing it for the money, or he's doing it to get to the top of the Forbes #1, or he's doing it because he wants to be the best combat sports athlete in the world, and all of those things are true. And when he says them, people believe him. I've been on the show before and we've talked about it. McGregor makes people believe in him. And I think saying things like, I'm doing it for my child, I have more reasons to do it now, people believe in that, and then, this fight is very, very tough to believe in for a lot of people, I think, but still he can make them believe when he speaks like that, I think. That was, to end the week on that for a lot of people, I think was big as well. I tweeted at the time, ending the week on a positive note. I think the 4 or 5 questions, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the London press conference for both of them were good. It took away from the kind of the sideshow roast battle, and then for McGregor to go in and do that, which was very, very good as well, was a good way to end it.
Yeah, it's a great post press conference that people can check out on YouTube on Severe MMA. It's great. And I got to say, before we wrap this up, Steven Espinoza, hello darkness, my old friend, wasn't really a part of this whole thing. Really looked bothered in London. Did the whole thing where, like, when McGregor was talking to him, he's like, "Fuck this," and ends up going up like on his elbows and giving him the look, like, like, what are you doing, Steven? Get with the program. Like, this is a guy that looked like he was gonna go home and cry every time after these press conferences were happening. Everyone else was laughing, everyone else was loving it. I think it actually hit a chord with poor Steven. Other thing I was gonna say, Floyd Mayweather calling Conor McGregor a microwaved meal during the London press conference was one of the worst put downs I've ever heard in my life. And I have to say, Floyd Mayweather has such terrible trash talk, so cringeworthy. The guy, he doesn't take stuff in. He can just tell, he's one of these guys with obviously a problem where he doesn't, kind of like ADD, where he doesn't take stuff in and he's got stuff going on in his mind. So when you watch him do interviews, it's like, stuff just randomly comes out that has nothing to do with what's going on. And we saw a lot of that during the press conferences, but nothing worse than his dancing, him going, yeah, and some of the other horrible stuff that he's planned out during this press conference.
There was one other thing as well. Did you see at the time when he went up to McGregor's photographer, when he was like, put that camera down or something like that?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if people know him. That's Yogurty Dave Fogarty, who's McGregor's cameraman. He is like an IMMAF, or however you say that, silver medalist in the Worlds, and he's won a European medal as well. I'm like, do you know what you're doing here? That guy could absolutely beat you into a pulp if he wanted to, like one double leg and you're done. Like, that's kind of the funniest thing of all this. Like, it's so weird. It's, if they actually had a real fight, we all know what would happen, and it's the guise of that is kind of gone, as we were saying with the stare down and stuff earlier. But that kind of really brought it out for me. It was like, you don't know who you're threatening there.
Oh, for sure. And then also when Floyd Mayweather got that guy in Toronto to get money out of his bag, and then Conor McGregor's like, yeah, bitch, go. What did Conor McGregor say? Yeah, bitch, go get the money or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah, that was a highlight. Well, and the other highlight for me was Floyd Mayweather's dad coming to that press conference at the start in LA, throwing out his jabs and telling McGregor he was going to beat him up. But before we wrap this up, do you guys have any lowlights or other highlights that stand out to you from this whole sort of fiasco?
I will say this before we cut to you, Sean. I mean, while it's really fun sitting here and, shitting on the press conference and, sort of dissecting it, I mean, ultimately, I think it was a success, even if it wasn't perfect, even if it wasn't flawless. I think while we sit here as hardcores and break everything apart, you've got all these people from the world's media who have never even attended a boxing press conference, let alone an MMA press conference. And for them, they just ate it up. I mean, you have all these outlets, all these things flying around. I know that there were some low points with this whole racism thing. Is this fight about race? The whole homophobia thing. But I think ultimately, it's all going to contribute to pay-per-view buys. It's all just, gives people discussion. Even if you've got some old lady in some corner of the world discussing how she doesn't like those boys saying those mean words and things like that. I'm not saying she's necessarily going to buy the pay-per-view, but I think it's kind of like in pro wrestling where as long as you get a reaction, that's all that matters. I was actually watching that show Glow, Dennis, that you recommended, and there's a great point where they make the point where it doesn't matter if people hate you, it doesn't matter if people cheer for you. The worst thing is if there's no reaction. And pretty much anything that happened here, there was always a reaction. And it doesn't matter whether people are buying it because they think it's a pure sport, which I don't think anyone is going to in this case, or they're buying it because they hate Floyd or they hate Conor and they just want to see one of them, get their asses kicked. I think it gave people a lot of ammo for water cooler talk, and a lot of people who don't know anything about the sport of boxing, MMA, were there the next day talking about, do you think this guy's a racist, or do you think this and that? And ultimately, it's helped lead to what I'm believing a lot more that this really will break the pay-per-view record. What did you think about it, Sean?
I'm not sure if it'll break the pay-per-view record or not. I think that's 4.6 million is a lot of money back. See, the thing is, I think a lot of boxing people will actually stay away from it. But how many hardcore boxing fans actually are there? Maybe like 200,000 or something like that. So it won't make too much difference. And on the lowlights and things, obviously the whole racist accusations and the homophobia and all that, that was definitely the lowest point. I think actually in an overall sense of low points, I think it was the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't see much of the real McGregor and the real Mayweather. Like, I would rather have seen Mayweather coming out saying, "You've never had a professional boxing fight." They did a little bit of that, I suppose, but it just went to like the strippers and the bag and the tapping out. Well, the tapping out thing was okay because that was a good gimmick. I think that my favorite gimmick McGregor came up with was it's half a fight. I thought that was a brilliant gimmick, which MMA fans would absolutely love. But there wasn't enough of that. There was little clips of that, and I suppose, as well, in the overall sense, that's because there was 4 days. I think that was the biggest problem. There was just too much. It should have been I know Toronto was great, but it probably should have been Vegas, New York, Dublin. That's where it should have been. Mm-hmm. They made huge mistakes. The London one wasn't great. The place was half empty. Obviously, the Toronto one was great. The sound as well in New York. The production through the whole week was absolutely horrendous until it got to London when it wasn't too bad. I thought the analysis was absolutely rubbish as well. Really, really bad. Paulie Malignaggi, I thought did an okay job, but everyone else, especially when it came to England, and they had basically no MMA guys, just boxing guys, and it was pretty bad all the way around. But as you said, people not connected to MMA, not connected to boxing, absolutely eat this up, whether it's in a good way or a bad way, and that doesn't really matter as long as they're talking. If they're saying good things about it, they're saying bad things about it, it's all the one as long as it's getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to cap it off, the whole Snapchat thing as well with Floyd Mayweather gone on Snapchat or whatever, and Conor McGregor, well, he's jumping into the picture of the Snapchat and sort of playing along. That was frustrating. And also,
two guys working together.
Exactly. It made you think like these two guys are sort of working together to swerve us. And also, Dana White looked a little bit like a beetroot. And he's been looking like a beetroot for a while now, and I just want to put it out there. All right, let's talk about Gunnar Nelson, Sean, because he went down at Scotland. It was a shock to a lot of the world who believed that Gunnar Nelson was going to notch another win in the main event. What did you think of the eye poke accusations and the fact that Gunnar said that it made him see double and he should have stopped, and it had a huge impact on the fight? Do you think it took anything away from the win?
At the time, I didn't even see him, to be honest. And usually it's something you see pretty clearly. But I suppose it was very, very early in the fight. I went back and watched the fight. It was like, 10, 15 seconds into the fight when he got the first eye poke. There's slow-mo videos going around of it. I think there was 3 separate eye pokes, and they were all very, very bad eye pokes, in fairness to him. Now, like, what can you do about it? There's no commission in Scotland. It's obviously going to be the UFC. Can you appeal? Even if you do appeal, nothing's going to happen anyway. And people are going to act like you're a sore loser, which is very unfortunate, and I hate that because remember Matt Mitrione, was it against Travis Brown as well? It's the same thing again, you know. It's awful, but were they on purpose? I don't know. The last one looked very, very bad, I thought, when Gunnar Nelson was up against the cage, and I think it did have an effect on him because Gunnar Nelson, he's not right. I've discussed him loads of times before and written about him. Like, a lot people defend in different ways in MMA. Lots of guys, most guys who are good, defend in a boxing range with a boxing stance, with head movement. Gunnar Nelson doesn't do that. Gunnar Nelson defends with his feet. He gets out as far as he can where you can't hit him. If you try to attack him, he'll move side to side, and then he'll come in quick, hit you, take you down, whatever he wants to do. And that's kind of just how it works. You have to kind of push him back to get him, you know, to get strikes like Rick Story did to him, bring on the pressure. Now, against Ponzinibbio, when he got hit the first time and hurt, he was kind of just standing in the boxing range in his karate stance. And it was so weird going back to watch it. If you kind of just freeze frame it where he actually got hit, it did look like there was some depth perception problems there. He looked totally alien to where he normally would be. If that's the eye poke or not, I don't know. It kind of makes sense that it was. It was a pretty bad eye poke. But once he got hit that one time, I think it was basically over by then. His dome was rattled. He came in and knocked him out. You can't take it away from Ponzinibbio. Like, it was a huge win, very, very good. Like, landed those big punches on him, but it's a tough fight to analyze because you can feel for Gunnar Nelson because he did get eye poked. You can feel for Ponzinibbio because it maybe tarnishes the win a little bit for him, and it's a huge win over a guy ranked ahead of him. But I think they were two good fighters. I was struggling to pick this fight. I went for Nelson because I thought he'd be able to take him down, but it never really got that far, I suppose. And yeah, it's a tough one really, but there's definitely an argument to be made on both sides.
And I was going to say, Sean, just quickly, a lot of criticism from people about how Gunnar Nelson is sort of peaked at the top 10, and he may never get right up the division, may never become a contender. A lot of people feel like this is the best he can do. What's your response to those people? Do you agree with them? Do you think Gunnar Nelson could go a lot higher? Is this the best he can do? What do you think?
I was actually thinking about that today. I think in the welterweight division, styles make fights an awful lot. Like, I think Gunnar Nelson would have a better chance against Tyron Woodley than Demian Maia has, to be honest. But I think someone like Wonderboy, I think he's a very, very bad matchup for the likes of Gunnar and for the likes of he's a good matchup for the likes of Gunnar, but a bad matchup in terms of the two fights I went against Tyron Woodley, where he was like dominating the 4 rounds, and he probably should have won the second one at least. Then it's weird, that division. Like, if Masvidal, if he fights Gunnar Nelson, you know, he's good takedown defense. You know, it's probably hard for Gunnar Nelson to beat him. But Masvidal against Wonderboy, you expect Wonderboy to win. Then you would expect Gunnar to beat Wonderboy. You know, it's really weird. It depends on the matchmaking. It depends on who he fights. I think for Gunnar Nelson, it's tough to get people to fight him above because he is so dangerous. You know, if that fight goes to the ground, apart from Maia, he's the best in that division by miles. Like, but it is tough. He keeps getting those tough matchups because people won't fight him. And I know I've heard so many stories about him. He's probably one of the most, you know, has the most pullouts of anyone in the UFC against him. To be, I don't think he can ever be a UFC champion, if I'm being honest about it. What is he ranked 8 now? I think he could probably get into the top 5 with a couple of wins. If he was to fight, say, a Wonderboy who's coming off a loss as well to Tyron Woodley, that fight maybe makes sense now. But they're talking about Ponzinibbio. If he fought Wonderboy, beat him, he'd probably be in the top 5, you know. But yeah, it really is a tough one. That division is so strong as well that, you know, anyone can really beat anyone. It's the same as kind of lightweight as well. Those two divisions are just so good. But yeah, Gunnar Nelson is a great fighter. I think it was Mookie Alexander said he's been 10 years as a pro, and usually people did, you know, you're not getting much better. You are kind of what you are by that stage, and I think Gunnar Nelson is what he is, but he is definitely still a very good fighter.
He's definitely got a lot of great fights ahead of him and a lot of classic Gunnar Nelson-esque moments. We are running out of time, so before we let you go, Sean, we're going to talk about this weekend, specifically Kelvin Gastelume taking on Chris Weidman in a fight that surprised a lot of people, just given Chris Weidman's career recently. He's on a bit of a dip. He went from being the champion to losing, I think, 4 fights now, VTKO in a row, and now he's up against a really, really stiff test in Kelvin Gastelume, a guy who's on the way up. Before we break this fight down and go into the technical aspects, what do you think are the stakes here? What's really on the line? I mean, for Kelvin Gastelume, it's pretty obvious. A win over Weidman puts him in the top 5 and really escalates him into contention. But, I mean, Chris Weidman, First of all, do you agree with this fight being made? Do you think this is the wisest one for Weidman at the moment? And what's really on the line here? If Weidman does suffer another loss, which is entirely possible, is his career sort of on the line in this sense, Sean?
I'm not sure his career is on the line, but I think his top class career for the next maybe 2 years is on the line. If he doesn't beat Kelvin Gastelume, that's 4 losses in a row against Rockhold, Romero, Mousasi, who's left the division now, and Gastelum. That would be devastating for him. It'd take a lot to build back up after that. You asked me, did I agree with this? I don't, to be honest. I think, I know Luke Thomas talks about it a lot, and I totally agree with him. I think warm-up fights, tune-up fights are what people need, definitely. I thought Mousasi was a little bit tough for him. Like, people kind of forget, it's kind of the Anthony Pettis thing as well. Remember, Pettis fought RDA, it took a horrendous beating, and it's taken him 2 years nearly now to come back to looking a little bit like himself, because he's had tough matchups all the way, even gone into Max Holloway down a weight. Same goes for Weidman. That Luke Rockhold fight was one of the most horrendous beatings I've ever seen in the UFC. That should have been stopped 3 or 4 minutes before it actually was. Then he goes in against Romero, gets his head taken off. Then the knees from Mousasi. It's not getting any easier now against Gastelum. It's a tough one for him. For Gastelum, as you said, top 5. That division is wide open now. With Romero coming off a loss, Jacare's there. And it looks like your boy Robert Whittaker is going to fight Michael Bisping next. So yeah, it's really wide open. I think it's a very good fight and a huge stakes on the line as well.
Well, let's talk about this fight from a technical perspective, because obviously Gastelum, a fantastic wrestler, 25 years old, and even though that win over Vitor Belfort was turned into a no contest, I mean, who are we kidding? That was a great performance against Vitor Belfort, great performance against Tim Kennedy. It kind of looks like, he's getting these big fights. The pressure's not really on him. Mentally, he seems really, really sound. And, his striking has come a long way. So in this fight, how do you think this plays out? Who do you think has the advantage here, Sean?
I think Gastelum has a big advantage on the feet, and I think Weidman could have a big advantage on the ground. I think the key to this fight is Chris Weidman's takedown. If he can take Gastelum down early, I think he could win this fight 5-0. Could keep taking him down, win it every round. But if he doesn't, I think Gastelum will be better early. I think he'll win the first 3 or 4 rounds. He'll get a little bit tired, and then Weidman might get some late takedowns. So I think the fight will either go one of those 2 ways. They're very different fighters. They might, on a wider scale, they might seem similar enough. I think they're actually very different. Weidman is more of a counter puncher, low output, tries to hit you with hard shots and knock you down, or land those shots. Very good at feinting, land 1 or 2 shots, then we'll feint again, we'll go in for takedown. Whereas Gastelum is all action, he'll go forward, and that's why I think you might get a little bit tired later in the fight. But I think if Gastelum can keep his gas going for into the 3rd and 4th round, I think he'll do enough to win this. But as I said, the biggest thing is the takedown. If he can stop Weidman's takedowns, he's a great chance. If he can't, Weidman win all 5 rounds. I think he'll go to a decision either way, unless, as I said, Weidman, with the amount of damage he's taken, if Gastelum does win the first 3 rounds and does put on a lot of damage, he has huge output and he hits hard as well. If he does that, I'm not sure if Weidman can stand up to it. It's a tough one. I definitely be leaning towards Gastelum in this fight, but as I said, Weidman's wrestling is very, very good, and if he has a very good game plan to take Gastelum down and he sticks to it, he could do that. So it's a very enjoyable, intriguing fight for me.
Gasper, what do you think with this matchup as we wrap up? If you had to pick a winner here, do you agree with Sean? Do you agree with his analysis, or do you have another take on this one?
I think a lot of what Sean said is pretty much spot on. I think we'll see a very good version of Weidman. I think he knows his back's up against the wall, and I think he's going to be pulling all stops. I think that this may end up being an absolute war. One thing that you can't take away from Chris is his heart, his perseverance. I mean, in a lot of his fights, he's gone through adversity, he's been hurt, and then he's either come back or tried to come back. The other thing is, though, he is getting up there in age a little bit. He's a little bit older than when he was a couple of years ago when he was champion. You kind of wonder how much does that damage take a toll. Obviously, he goes through a really tough weight cut as well. A lot of people talking about whether he should go to maybe light heavyweight for a while. And I think over time, that is something that kind of hurts your ability to make those comebacks, especially as you get older. So obviously the big X factor here is what is Weidman's mental frame at the moment. I think Sean's right. I think given that he is way bigger than Kelvin Gastelume, he's a very legitimate middleweight. I think he'd be smart to slow the pace, slow this really quick output that Kelvin brings, take him down, and just grind him out, at least for a couple of rounds. See if he can use that weight, that size, to slow Kelvin down, and then maybe put a few rounds away in the corner. But that's the thing, on the feet, Kelvin is just dynamite. He's got a really, really good stand-up. He's very quick, and he's got such high output, and he's so much faster than Weidman. Weidman's all about timing, whereas Kelvin is just all about high output. So I don't know. I think if it stays on the feet, it's slowly going to get away from Weidman. I don't know. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. And I guess one of the things that makes this such a fascinating matchup is this really is a step up for Kelvin Gastelume. I mean, not to take anything away from his wins against Vitor or Tim Kennedy. Those guys are obviously a little bit older. Tim Kennedy just retired. Vitor's, surely around the corner from retirement, even if he says that he wants to do this Legends division. Weidman still is a very tough guy, and his losses, though they have been pretty brutal, they've come against only the top guys, Rockhold, Romero, and Mousasi. So I still feel like this is pick and fight, but I'm leaning heavily towards Gastelum. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he TKO'd him in the third round. That's what my gut's telling me.
I'm going to go with Gastelum here. And if Weidman does lose, I'd love to see him go up to light heavyweight and give it a crack there. But guys, that is the end of the program. A big thanks to Jon Sheehan. You guys can check him out on Severe MMA. There's a guest host in Jeremy Botta on the latest episode, I believe. So make sure to check that out because that's pure fire. And make sure to check out his articles on Sherdog.com as well. Always a fantastic man. You can, of course, follow Sean on Twitter at SeanSheehanBA, so make sure to check that out. And a big thanks to our guests, Colby Covington, Greg Rosa, Luke Rockhold. We won't be around next week. We'll be going up to UFC 214 and also coming back, so the show will be gone for 2 weeks. We'll be back on the 9th of August. That's Wednesday, the 9th of August. Submission Radio will return. Of course, make sure to jump on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. Check out all of our UFC 214 coverage. It's going to be a lot of it, a lot of fun, some stuff from behind the scenes. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter as well. And also big thanks again to Mousasi for sponsoring us on this trip. We couldn't have done it without them. We'll be putting out all information about Mousasi throughout the week as well. So make sure to follow them, support them, and thank them for getting Submission Radio to UFC 214. But with that, guys, have a great week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Submission Radio. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.